The President of the United States is without a doubt the most powerful person on the face of the earth. Think about what that one person controls. They command the most advanced military in human history. They direct the foreign policy of the entire Western world. They sign budget bills worth trillions of dollars, moving mountains of cash with a single pen stroke. They even hold the nuclear codes. But there is one thing the president does not control. One lever they cannot pull, and it drives them crazy. The price of money itself. The president can declare war, but he cannot decide how much it costs to borrow the money to fight it. He can promise a booming economy, but he cannot print the cash to make it happen. And that, right there, is the hidden engine behind one of the most explosive conflicts in modern politics, the war between Donald Trump and the Federal Reserve. On the surface, this looks like a boring policy debate. You see headlines about basis points and inflation targets and yield curves. But if you peel back the layers, if you look at what is really happening, you realize this isn't about economics. Not really. It is about power. It is about who gets to control the gas pedal of the American empire. And right now, there are two hands fighting for the wheel. And the scary part? They might both be right. This is the story of the sugar high, the crash, and the $35 trillion debt bomb that is ticking underneath it all. Welcome to the deep end. Chapter 2. The Addiction. To understand why Trump is so obsessed with interest rates, we have to stop thinking like economists and start thinking like addicts. Because cheap money is a drug. When interest rates are low, when they are down near zero, money is, effectively, on sale. Imagine walking into a bank asking for $1 million, and they tell you, "Sure, take it. You barely have to pay us back anything extra." What would you do? You would take the money, you would buy a house, you would start a business, you would buy stocks. When rates are low, credit flows through the economy like water. People feel richer. Companies hire more workers because borrowing is cheap. The stock market looks at all this spending and it shoots up to the moon. It feels fantastic. It feels like a party that never has to end. This is what economists call monetary stimulus. But let's call it what it really is, a sugar high. And Donald Trump, perhaps more than any president in history, loves the sugar high. But here is the catch, and it is a big one. Low interest rates feel good until they don't, because eventually, all that cheap money starts chasing too few goods. Prices go up. A house that cost $300,000 suddenly costs $500,000. A gallon of milk doubles in price. Your paycheck stays the same, but you can buy less and less with it. That is inflation. And inflation is the hangover that comes after the party. So we have a system in the United States designed to manage this. We have a designated driver, the Federal Reserve. Their job is to take away the punch bowl just as the party is getting good. And nobody, absolutely nobody likes the guy who takes away the punch bowl, especially not Donald Trump. Chapter 3. The Trump Doctrine. Now, I want you to put yourself in Trump's shoes for a moment. Forget the politics. Just look at the incentives. Why does he want lower rates so badly? Why does he attack Jerome Powell, the man he appointed, calling him an enemy of the state? It comes down to three things. And the first one is buried deep in his DNA. You have to remember, before he was a politician, before the rallies and the red hats, Donald Trump was a real estate developer, and you have to understand how real estate works. You do not build a skyscraper with your own cash. You build it with debt. You borrow massive amounts of money. You build the tower, and you hope the value of the building goes up faster than the interest on the loan. It is called leverage. Donald Trump spent 50 years operating in a world where debt was his best friend. He once called himself the king of debt. And yes, you heard that right. He meant it as a compliment. In his world, low interest rates are oxygen. If rates are low, his buildings are profitable. His empire grows. If rates are high, the math breaks. The loans get expensive. The empire shakes. So when he looks at the US economy, he doesn't see a delicate ecosystem of supply and demand. He sees one giant real estate deal, and his instinct, his gut reaction that he has honed for decades, is to leverage it up. He wants to borrow cheap, build big, and let the future worry about the bill. But there is a second reason, and this one is purely political. Trump knows a secret about the American voter. People do not vote based on complex economic theories. They vote based on how they feel right now. If the stock market is hitting all-time highs and loans are cheap, people feel rich. And when people feel rich, they re-elect the president. Trump views the Dow Jones Industrial Average as his personal scoreboard. If the line goes up, he is winning. If the line goes down, he's losing. It is that simple. So, his logic is perfectly rational. He wants the Fed to cut rates, print money, and juice the markets. He wants the economy running hot. He wants the sugar high to kick in right before the election, or right as he takes office. And if that causes inflation 3 years from now, well, that is a problem for the future. In politics, 3 years is a lifetime away. But here is the thing. The Federal Reserve does not operate on a 4-year election cycle, and that is where the war begins. Chapter 4. The Wall of Powell. Before we get to the battle with Jerome Powell, I want to take a quick second to say something. I am trying to break down these complex stories in a way that actually makes sense, without the jargon. If you are enjoying this video, and if you want to see more deep dives like this, please hit the like button below. It really helps the algorithm show this to more people. And if you want to follow along as we decode the global economy, make sure you are subscribed. All right, let's get back to the conflict. So, who is the man standing in Trump's way? Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve. He is a lawyer, an investment banker, a quiet man who wears gray suits and speaks in careful, boring paragraphs. He looks like the ultimate bureaucrat, but he holds the keys to the money printer. And here is the most important thing you need to know about him. He is not elected. You did not vote for him. You cannot fire him. And that is exactly the point. The Federal Reserve was designed to be independent. It was created to be a fortress, a wall between the politicians and the money supply. Why? Because history has taught us a very painful lesson. When politicians control the money printer, they always, and I mean always, abuse it. Look at ancient Rome. Look at Germany in the 1920s. Look at modern Venezuela. When a politician needs to pay for a war, or a new social program, or just wants to win an election, the temptation to just print more money is too strong to resist. They print the money. They create a short-term boom, and then the currency collapses. The Federal Reserve exists to prevent that. Their job is to be the adult in the room. While Trump is looking at the next 12 months, the Fed is supposed to be looking at the next 10 years. Their mandate is to keep prices stable. And sometimes, that means they have to crash the party. They have to raise interest rates, make borrowing expensive, and slow the economy down on purpose. It is painful. It hurts. And for a president like Trump who builds his entire brand on success and growth, having an unelected bureaucrat tap the brakes is infuriating. Feels like sabotage. Trump looks at Powell and thinks, I appointed you. You should be loyal to me. You should be helping me win. But Powell looks at the data and thinks, my loyalty is to the dollar, not the president. This is not just a disagreement. It is a clash of two completely different worldviews. One wants to win the moment, the other wants to survive the decade. Chapter 5. The Fed's Mistake. But wait, because this story is about to get more complicated. You might be thinking, okay, so the Fed are the good guys. They are the responsible ones protecting us from inflation. Well, not exactly, because recently, the Fed messed up badly. Remember 2021? Inflation started creeping up. Prices at the grocery store were climbing, and what did the Fed say? They said it was transitory. They said it was just a temporary blip. They kept interest rates at zero. They kept printing money. They were wrong. Inflation exploded to levels we had not seen in 40 years. And then they had to panic. They slammed on the brakes, hiking interest rates faster than at any time in recent history. So when Trump attacks the Fed, when he calls them boneheads, he actually has a point. They missed the signs. They were asleep at the wheel. And this gives Trump the opening he needs. He can say, look, these experts, they don't know what they are doing. Why should we let them control the economy? Why shouldn't I, the elected president, have a say in interest rates? And that is a very dangerous question to ask. Because once you break that wall between the president and the money printer, you can never rebuild it. Chapter 6. The Debt Bomb. But there is a darker reason why Trump wants lower rates. A reason that almost nobody talks about on the news. It isn't just about the stock market. And it isn't just about real estate. It is about survival. And this is where the story gets truly scary. We need to talk about the debt. Not your credit card debt. The national debt. The United States government owes nearly $35 trillion. That number is so big, it is meaningless to the human brain. So let's break it down. The government, just like you, has to pay interest on that debt. Every month, billions of dollars go out the door just to pay the interest on money we borrowed years ago. Now, do the math with me. When interest rates are at 0%, servicing that debt is easy, it is practically free. But when interest rates are at 5%, suddenly the interest payments explode. Right now, the US government is spending more money on interest payments than it spends on the entire military budget. Let that sink in for a second. We are spending more to pay off bondholders than we are to defend the country. And this is the trap. If interest rates stay high, the US government goes into a death spiral. They have to borrow more money just to pay the interest on the old money. It becomes a snowball that gets bigger and bigger until it causes an avalanche. Trump knows this. He understands that high interest rates turn America's debt into a ticking time bomb. If he is in the White House and the economy crashes because the debt payments get too high, he gets the blame. So, he needs lower rates, not just to pump the stock market, but to keep the government solvent. He wants to force the Fed to lower rates so that the government can afford its own bills. It is a desperate move. It is like using one credit card to pay off another credit card. It works for a while, but eventually you run out of cards. Chapter 7. The Nightmare Scenario. So, what happens if Trump actually wins this fight? Let's play out the scenario. Imagine Trump returns to power. He pressures the Fed. Maybe he even tries to fire Jerome Powell and replace him with a loyalist, someone who will do exactly what he says. He orders them to slash interest rates to zero. What happens next? First comes the boom. And no, I am not exaggerating. It would be a massive boom. With rates at zero, the stock market would likely double. Home prices would skyrocket again. Crypto would go to the moon. Corporations would borrow trillions of dollars to buy back their own stock. Everyone would feel incredibly rich. For about 18 months, it would look like the golden age of the American economy. Trump would go on TV and say, "I told you so. I fixed it." But then comes the catch. And this catch is what keeps central bankers awake at night. The inflation that follows wouldn't be like 2022. It wouldn't be temporary. It would be entrenched. Prices wouldn't just go up. They would spiral. And then something worse would happen. The bond vigilantes would show up. Now, you might not know who the bond vigilantes are. They are the investors, the pension funds, foreign governments, who buy U.S. debt. They are the ones who actually lend America money. If they see that the president is forcing the Fed to print money just to fund a party, they will stop buying. They will say, "No thanks. Your dollars are going to be worthless. We don't want them." If the world loses trust in the US dollar, the game is over. The value of the dollar crashes. Imported goods become unaffordable. The cost of living doesn't just rise, it doubles. And the irony? To stop that crash, the Fed would have to raise interest rates higher than ever before. We are talking about 18, maybe 20% interest rates. It would cause a depression that would make 2008 look like a picnic. This is the nightmare scenario, the short-term sugar high, followed by the long-term heart attack. Chapter 8. The conclusion. So, where does this leave us? We have a president who wants growth at any cost. We have a Federal Reserve that is terrified of inflation. And we have $35 trillion of debt sitting in the corner, waiting to explode. It is a stalemate. But here is the reality. Donald Trump isn't fighting Jerome Powell. He is fighting reality. He wants the benefits of cheap money, without the consequences. He wants the party, without the hangover. And honestly, who doesn't? We all want low mortgage rates. We all want our stocks to go up. We are all addicted to the sugar high. But economics has a nasty way of balancing the scales. You can print money, but you cannot print wealth. You can lower interest rates, but you cannot lower the cost of reality. The tension between the White House and the Fed isn't going away. It is built into the system. It is the battle between what feels good now and what keeps us alive later. So the next time you see Trump attack the Fed on Twitter, or you see Jerome Powell give a dry, boring speech about basis points, remember what is really happening. One man is trying to step on the gas. The other is trying to keep the car on the road. And all of us, we are just sitting in the back seat, hoping they don't drive us off a cliff. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you understand the madness a little better, give it a like. And let me know in the comments, who do you think is right? Should the president control the money? Or is that too dangerous? I'll see you in the next one.